The man thought his wife was not at home, so he made out with his mistress downstairs. However, just as he got out of the car, his wife suddenly appeared in front of the two of them. This moment scared the man so much that he didn't know what to do. He quickly explained that this was the new female colleague from the company who came to talk to him about business. After hearing her husband's explanation, Lucy didn't pursue the matter. Instead, she calmly shook hands with her lover. Then Lucy praised her lover's hairstyle as being done well. She then used this as an excuse to ask for Lisa's contact information. Jack, her husband, just looked on without daring to say a word. After the two exchanged contact information, Lucy deliberately acted affectionate with her husband and went home. That night, while browsing Lisa's phone updates, she told her husband that she wanted to watch the movie that had just gone online. Jack, however, appeared impatient and said that it was a romantic movie and there was nothing to watch. In the end, he still could not withstand his wife's pleas and agreed. However, all of this was part of Lucy's plan, because she already knew that her husband had been cheating on her. The next day, Lisa also saw on her phone the updates that Lucy had posted about the movie she had watched the night before. Seeing how sweet the family looked together made her feel bad. Lucy used one tactic after another to make her lover back off. That day, she took advantage of the 5-year anniversary of her marriage to her husband. She invited all of their colleagues to celebrate their anniversary. Lucy showed off her love for her husband like crazy in front of them. Colleagues who didn't know the truth took out their phones and filmed the whole thing, then posted it on WeChat Moments. On the other side, Lisa happened to see this scene, watching all her friends posting about their lovey-dovey scenes, and hearing Jack's heartfelt confession to Lucy. At this moment, she could no longer bear it. She gulped down her wine and sent Jack a breakup letter. Jack's face instantly paled when he saw Lisa's breakup text. However, this could not escape Lucy's attention. She also guessed that it was the lover who sent the message. Seeing her husband staring at his phone in a daze, Lucy suddenly said, "I think we should call it a day." At this time, Jack didn't know that this was all a trap set by his wife. Lucy then bid farewell to her colleagues, and Jack arranged for his wife to take a taxi to leave first. While he drove to Lisa's house, Lucy saw the panic in her husband's face, and immediately told the driver to follow her husband's car. They also arrived downstairs at Lisa's. Lucy couldn't believe it when she saw her husband walking up the stairs. Jack quickly found Lisa. The moment they met, Lisa slapped him directly. Jack did not defend himself against the situation and simply embraced her and made out with her. At this time, the two did not know that Lucy was already standing at the bottom of the building watching them. Lucy could not believe that her husband would do such a thing. Looking at the loving images of the two on the computer, Lucy's heart was torn apart. She could not understand why her husband would betray her. What was even more terrifying was that she found photos of a divorce case she had handled in her husband's hard drive. Since she never knew who the client was, the evidence she sent online caused her to be misunderstood and even lose her job. After seeing this content, Lucy also roughly guessed the truth. Then she found her husband's colleague and asked indirectly. The colleague looked at Lucy in front of him and thought that everything was fine, so he directly told the truth. Lucy even learned from her colleague that her husband and her lover had already had contact 6 months ago. After learning the news, she tried her best to control her emotions so that the other person would not see through her. In the end, Lucy could only pretend to be calm and see the colleague off. Listening to the recording she had just made in her hand, Lucy could no longer hold back her tears. It was at this moment that she truly understood her husband. It turned out that her husband had been controlling her all along. Lucy told her best friend that everyone around her praised her husband for being so good to her. She used to think the same way, but now it seems that she is living in the world of Truman. Her best friend reminded Lucy that it would be very difficult to divorce a man with her husband's scheming nature. It would be very difficult to get a divorce, not to mention finding evidence of infidelity. Lucy is also aware of this, so she needs to collect evidence without her husband noticing. Meanwhile, Jack has brought his son to the supermarket because Lucy told him they were just shopping and didn't tell him to go see his girlfriend. Jack is full of worry as he looks for Lucy. He hopes that his wife is not cheating on him. When he passes an intersection, Jack sees Lucy picking up things. When he sees that his wife is indeed here, Jack's face changes. Both of them hid their thoughts, afraid that the other would see through them. When they returned home that night, Jack had prepared a candlelit dinner for Lucy. Looking across at her husband, Lucy couldn't understand what he was getting at. She could only pretend to know nothing and put on a smile in front of him. In order to prevent her husband from becoming suspicious and knowing that he had always wanted a second child, Lucy pretended that she was preparing for pregnancy. However, at this time, Jack didn't know that his wife was fooling him. After investigating with her best friend, Lisa found out that Jack had purchased the apartment where she lived, and that the only places they had appeared together were in public places, and there was no evidence of any misconduct. After listening to her best friend's response, Lucy knew that her husband could not be tested in the same way. On the other side, Jack sent a message to Lisa while at work. Lisa knew it was his birthday and asked where he wanted to go. At this time, Lisa looked at the friend circle message sent by Lucy on her phone, and looked at the warm and happy family scene in the picture, and then thought of the photo in Jack's car. So she made a bold decision. She was going to go to the beach that Lucy and Jack had been to. Unaware of the situation, Jack fell asleep in the car. When he woke up and looked at the hotel lobby, he was shocked, helpless. Jack could only follow Lisa to the hotel. Lucy called her husband's assistant to get some useful information. She learned from the assistant's mouth that Jack had gone to a hotel by the beach. Hearing this news, Lucy also thought of that place. She then hurriedly called her best friend. At this time, the unknowing Jack was still walking with Lisa on the beach. Their actions were also captured on film. The next day, Jack also returned home. At this time, Lucy found the hotel card in his wallet, so she deliberately took the card to her husband and asked. At this time, Jack pretended to be calm and did not give any explanation. It turned out that he was a man with a strong sense of control. Jack not only made Lucy wear her favorite cheongsam every day, and even his wife's work had to be done according to his recommendations. Lucy learned from her boss that her husband had once secretly taken her cell phone in order to prevent her from going to work and refused to give her the paid maternity leave that the company offered. Lucy was completely shocked when she heard this. She asked her boss if Jack also said that he had severe postpartum depression, and that if he had a fit, he might hurt the people around him. Her boss said that her husband had indeed said that, but Jack just went to a reunion with his college classmates as if nothing had happened. But Jack's former classmates didn't indulge him, and not only gossiped behind his back about him stealing at school, but even teased him in front of him about the time he wrote his first love letter to a female classmate. When he saw his classmates recklessly teasing him about his past scandals, Jack's face instantly turned ugly. However, that classmate didn't notice the change in Jack's face at that moment. The classmate still ignored him and shared his glorious past deeds with others. Little did he know that it was his indifference that also made the extremely jealous Jack remember it. In order to show off his current success, Jack had someone bring in a hand-knitted sweater made by his company. However, when everyone happily thought they were going to receive a gift, they were surprised to find that the classmate who had just left was missing. This really made Jack feel better for a moment. At this time, the classmate also realized his own stupid behavior. The female classmate next to him saw Jack, who had once liked her, and now became the boss of a listed company, and wanted to curry favor with him. But what she didn't expect was that Jack had already developed hatred in his heart. He directly refused. Jack then went to his lover's house. He walked expressionlessly into the living room with Lisa in his arms. It seemed that in this moment or in this place, he could find a trace of comfort and satisfaction. When Jack returned home, he sat outside alone listening to music. Lucy deliberately asked him if he was unhappy at the party. However, Jack acted naturally at this time. He said that he had a very good time at the party. These friends were just the same as before, not snobbish at all. Little did he know that all of this was the result of his vanity. He tried his best to appear normal in front of his wife, but he didn't know that his wife had seen through everything long ago. Lucy didn't point out what he had said. The next day, Lucy was on her way to pick up her son when she heard the kindergarten teacher say that the parents of that girl worked in jobs that made her envious. Hearing this also touched Lucy's heart, so she went home and deliberately told her husband what she had seen today. Jack immediately saw that his wife wanted to go out to work, and in no time at all, he found a job for his wife organizing and storing things. Her husband told Lucy that there were many stay-at-home mothers there who had been out of the workforce for a long time. After hearing what her husband said, Lucy understood what he meant. Subsequently, Lucy found a close friend and told her about the job her husband had found for her. Her friend also realized that what Jack wanted was not his wife, but a perfect pawn that he could manipulate at will. In order to get away from her husband's control, Lucy re-established contact with her former boss at the law firm. She hoped that her boss could give her a job. Just as her boss was feeling at a loss, Lucy's former subordinate Tom came over. He had also become a partner at the law firm. Tom wanted to help Lucy and said there was still an assistant position available. After some thought, Lucy agreed. That day, she saw that her husband was going to attend a business event. She and her best friend guessed that Lisa would probably be there too, so she sent someone to follow and see if they could find some clues to make contact. Sure enough, as they had expected, Jack was making eyes at Lisa at the reception. Jack even thought about recommending Lisa as the person behind the scenes when he spoke. Just as he was about to say Lisa's name, his wife appeared. Jack was taken aback when he saw Lucy appear. Jack immediately changed the subject and introduced Lucy. Facing the sudden appearance of Lucy, Lisa, who was sitting below, was also very surprised. She also didn't expect Lucy to appear here. What they didn't know was that Lucy's appearance here was actually intentional. Lucy was just asserting her sovereignty in front of Lisa. My husband is a very good entrepreneur, but in my eyes, he is even more of a good husband and father. A kind, loyal, responsible and good man. Jack looked at his wife praising himself and still feeling remorseful. What he actually didn't know was that Lucy already knew about his infidelity. The next day, Jack heard that the job he had introduced to his wife did not go. Lucy instead told him that she worked in a law firm. Jack was very upset when he heard this, but on the surface, he still greeted Lucy with a smile and expressed support for his wife's ideas. However, after he sent off Lucy, His face instantly changed. Jack then asked his friend about his wife's work. He froze for a moment when he heard the name Kyle. This Kyle was the legal partner responsible for his company's IPO. Jack soon found Kyle. He meant to ask the other party to resign from his wife. Jack even told him about his wife's depression. On the other side, Lisa sent Jack a text message, wanting to hang out with him. After she saw the hotel Jack booked, she suddenly realized something was wrong. She had clearly made a card at the hotel by the beach last time. Why did he suddenly change to another hotel? At this time, Lisa remembered the loving scene between Lucy and Jack at the conference yesterday. At this moment, she could no longer sit still and wanted to take revenge on Lucy as soon as possible. In order to assert her position, she went to Jack's company. Lisa hoped that Jack could go home with her to meet her grandmother. Jack initially froze when he heard about meeting the parents. When he saw Lisa's pleading look, he still agreed to the request. However, when he heard that the next time they met would be the last time, Jack seemed a little at a loss for words and directly refused. However, when Jack returned home, his face immediately changed again. He deliberately asked Lucy if the leader was Kyle. After getting a confirmation, he also began to apply his mind control theory. Jack said that his company was working with his legal department. He was afraid that if Lucy went to work, Kyle would deliberately make things difficult for him. It was likely that this was the reason why his company had not been approved. Jack decided to let Lucy resign from this job. Lucy said that no matter what, she didn't want to resign on her own initiative. Seeing that there was no way to change Jack's mind, he had to go along with Lucy's decision. Jack's company partner knew that he and Lisa were probably having an illicit relationship. In order to let her know her place, the partner did not spare Lisa's face at all, telling her to behave herself. After all, Jack was a family man. The next night, Lisa found Jack. Lisa asked him if he cared about Lucy very much. Seeing an angry Jack, Lisa kept playing the emotional card. She was always by Jack's side when he was vulnerable. She always thought that Jack only belonged to her. But in the end she found that she couldn't even share a husband with her wife. Watching Jack retreat, Lisa asked if he really didn't want a divorce. Lisa said that she wasn't afraid to fight for it, and that she didn't care how embarrassing the process was. This comment directly made Jack furious. He hated being threatened the most. Just then, Lucy walked over. In order to prevent her from finding out, Jack quickly put on a fake smile. He told Lisa not to disturb him in the middle of the night. He would find someone else to deal with work matters in the future. After Jack had said these words, he turned around and left directly. However, all of this was seen by Lucy. She could not believe that her husband would bring his lover back downstairs. The reason why Lisa was so excited was that the day before, Lisa had demonstrated to Lucy that she wanted Lucy to back off. Lucy did not indulge in such tactics, although Lisa did not say who her boyfriend was. She guessed it was her husband, so Lucy called her husband over. The moment she saw Jack, Lisa froze. She never expected Lucy to call Jack over, and Jack could only pretend that the two of them were being polite and greeted each other. Lisa watched Lucy and Jack put on a show of affection in front of her. She was so angry she didn't dare say a word. Looking at Lisa and Jack in front of her, Lucy, who was highly skilled, spoke up. Lisa said that her boyfriend is very good and she simply cannot live without him. Jack, in order to prevent his wife from seeing through the ruse, could only pretend to be calm as he asked Lisa questions about her boyfriend. Lucy, on the side, just watched the two of them perform their unemotional act in front of her. After seeing the betrayed Lisa, Lucy continued to hammer away at the top. She said that her husband is also very romantic. He even gave her a hotel membership card a couple of days ago. Lisa looked directly at Jack when she heard this. She must have bought Jack that hotel stored value card herself, and remembered what happened when they were at the hotel before. At this moment, Lisa was very angry, but she could only pretend to be calm. Lucy on the side also saw it in her eyes. Then she continued to act affectionately in front of Lisa without showing any emotions. She even made Jack declare his loyalty to her in front of Lisa. When she saw what Jack was about to say, Lisa quickly found an excuse to leave. As she watched Lisa leave, Jack was still pretending to be fine. He thought his wife was jealous. Lucy said that if other people were knocking at the door, she could not just sit there doing nothing. Jack was also shocked when he heard what his wife had said. He quickly explained that he had nothing to do with Lisa. Was there a misunderstanding? Jack looked at his wife, who continued to pursue the matter, and quickly changed the subject. He said that his relationship with Lisa was just a professional one. They had no other contact. However, Lucy did not believe such a thing. When she returned home that night, she still could not forgive her husband's explanation, so she took a pillow and slept with her son. The next day, after watching her husband sincerely apologize, Lucy finally chose to forgive him. In order to let Lucy see his attitude of admitting his mistake, Jack directly picked up his mother-in-law the next day. Lucy was just so happy to see her mother. However, just as they were happily chatting, Jack's mother poured a cup of boiling water. Jack's father, who was nearby, saw this situation and took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to pull his wife into the house. Jack's father scolded his wife for not pouring tea for Lucy's mother. Hearing what her husband said, she didn't dare to say another word. However, This kind of mental torture is just a small part of life. Just the day before, Lucy heard Jack's father educating his son that a man should not stay in the kitchen. Only a woman can. After hearing such a theory, Lucy still couldn't help but say something. Jack's father was directly stunned for a moment and thought his daughter-in-law was cursing his son. At this time, the father didn't know that Jack's infidelity had been discovered by Lucy. In order not to let her father-in-law find out, Lucy quickly apologized and left. At this time, Lucy looked at her mother-in-law busily working in the kitchen alone and thought about helping her mother-in-law share the workload, but was unexpectedly pushed away by her mother-in-law and didn't say anything more when she saw the scene. Just then, Jack returned, and his father, who was watching his son come back and sitting on the sofa, immediately stood up and shouted at his wife to hurry up and start dinner. Jack questioned his wife why she didn't help her mother cook. Lucy said her mother-in-law didn't need her help, but her father-in-law said his daughter-in-law didn't want to help. Looking at Jack's eyes, his father didn't say another word. At this time, Jack looked at Lucy's neck and felt uncomfortable. Seeing that there was no plaster in the house, he decided to go out and buy some. Just as he was checking his phone, the car hit the railing on the side of the road. At this time, Lucy, who was at home, also received a phone call from the hospital. Upon hearing that Jack had been in a car accident, her face instantly turned red, although her husband had cheated on her. After all, they were husband and wife. Lucy hurriedly ran to the hospital and just happened to see an injured person lying on the bed receiving emergency treatment. She thought that person was her husband. At that moment, she remembered what her husband had said yesterday. "My dear, after this, I finally understand what is most important to me. You and the children can be safe and healthy. The three of us can go back to our home together. This is more important to me than anything else." Looking at Jack in front of her, who was fine, Lucy, at that moment, could no longer hold back and cried out loud, hugging Jack. After returning home, Lucy looked at Jack by her side. She thought that was the end of their relationship. She still didn't know what her husband really looked like, and she had never heard her husband tell her the truth. Lucy didn't even know which words her husband had said to her during the 5 years they had been together were true and which were not. After hearing what Lucy had said, Jack also spoke his mind. He had also been reflecting on himself recently. He had a deep realization of his mistakes regarding the things he had done before. Jack said that he was not as strong as he appeared to be, and that he had always been very depressed. Seeing her husband sincerely repent, Lucy chose to forgive him. In order to let Lucy know that he was serious about correcting himself, Jack even took in his mother-in-law and personally pushed her out for a walk every day, which also made Lucy look on as she watched her husband play with their son. At this time she was still a little dazed, and she didn't know if what she was seeing was real or if her husband was deliberately putting on an act. However, at this time, Lucy still didn't know that her husband was investigating the man she saw at the banquet the last time. After seeing the man's information, Jack also found information online about the law firm where the man worked. He saw that it was a divorce law firm. At this time, Jack froze. He understood that Lucy had already started the divorce proceedings. In order not to let Lucy see through him, Jack continued to greet her with a smile every day when she got off work. He even crouched down to stick a wound sticker on Lucy's foot when he saw that she had a wound. Looking at her attentive husband, Lucy was still a little dazed. She couldn't believe that this was really her husband doing all this. At dinner that night, when her father-in-law didn't see the chopsticks and lost his temper with his wife, when Lucy brought the chopsticks over, her father-in-law started complaining again about why there was no wine. Soon Jack's mother brought the wine. Jack didn't take it seriously, but all of this was seen by Lucy and her mother. What they didn't expect, however, was that her mother-in-law just gave her father-in-law a potato and was directly scolded again by him. Lucy's son suddenly asked what was meant by eye power. Lucy and her mother saw it all with their own eyes. After dinner, the father-in-law still sat alone on the sofa watching TV. The mother-in-law was alone in the kitchen cleaning up. The father-in-law even directly took the glass of water he had finished drinking and asked his wife to pour him some more. Lucy saw that her mother-in-law was busy, so she went and helped the father-in-law pour some water for himself. But she never expected that her mother-in-law was still scolded by her husband. Lucy looked at her father-in-law, who was sitting on the sofa, bored, when she saw her mother-in-law, who was busy and yawning. She felt bad, but for such a family, she never expected that her husband would not sincerely apologize, but use her kindness to paralyze her obedience. When Jack saw that his wife had gone to see a divorce lawyer and even lied to him, his eyes were full of murderous intent. Jack never expected that his wife not only sent someone to secretly follow him, but also found evidence of his infidelity in his phone. Jack looked at the photos of his date with Lisa saved on his wife's phone, and their chat history. At this moment, he panicked a little. Jack remembered the scene from before when he was having dinner with Lisa, and the things his wife said to him. Then he thought about the scene when he saw Lucy meeting with the divorce lawyer earlier today. At this moment, Jack was completely angry. The anger in his eyes could not be hidden after all. He had been thinking about appeasing Lucy, but in the end, he was being tricked himself. Not long ago, Jack's company had a financial shortfall at a critical time when it was going public. The other company he had been working with did not choose to help. Mr. Chen asked Jack to return his money as soon as possible. He even mocked him. Jack did not care about what the other person said. At that moment, another big shot in the investment world also came over. Mr. Chen instantly changed his expression when he saw that Jack was familiar with the other person. He quickly went up to strike up a conversation. However, at this time, Jack did not give him the opportunity to take the investor away directly. All of a sudden, Mr. Chen was pleasing them by pouring them a drink. He heard that they wanted to invest in Jack's company. After the investors had been fed and sent off, Mr. Chen's face changed again. Gone was the arrogance and aggressive attitude he had just had. But Jack could not let him take advantage of him. When Jack returned home that evening, he suddenly noticed that his uncle's family had arrived. His face, which had just become happy, became gloomy again. In order not to let everyone see that he was not welcome, he could only change his face again. He walked up with a smile on his face. Jack greeted his uncle and his family, and had to say that his face-changing speed was really fast. However, what Jack never expected was, just as he and Lucy were busy in the kitchen, Dad, who was on the table at the time, started talking about Jack's ex-wife. Not only did he not praise her, he even insulted her. The previous daughter-in-law divorced because she disobeyed the housekeeper. This daughter-in-law is very good now and is obedient to his son. Lucy and Jack, who were in the kitchen at the time, also heard his words, and, seeing Lucy in a bad mood, Jack went straight outside. The dishes on the table were all made by Yaya. If you can't get used to them, you can go out and eat, so you can eat more comfortably. Gong Gong Ma shut up and said the food was delicious. And, looking at her caring husband, Lucy seemed to forgive him at that moment. Perhaps she thought her husband had now completely changed for her. After dinner, Lucy, as a reward for her husband, and she also changed into a sexy long skirt and danced happily with Jack. Jack said that since we are starting over, we should show sincerity and be honest with each other. Lucy immediately agreed, and then she asked her husband if he had anything to do with her being laid off. However, Jack did not take Lucy's questioning seriously. It turned out that Lucy suddenly received a dismissal notice while at work, and the first person she thought of was her husband for doing it. However, what Lucy did not expect was that after her best friend's investigation, discovered that her husband Jack had secretly transferred assets, and there was a suspiciously large entry in Jack's account within the past 2 years. Lucy said she seemed to have seen the name of that company before. Her best friend said that this company might be linked to Jack's other private accounts. Subsequently, Lucy started investigating her husband's company information in the limited time she had. She still couldn't believe that her husband, who had been affectionate with her the day before, could have become like this. But at this time, Lucy, who was in the midst of her happiness, thought that her husband had already reformed. In fact, all of this was an illusion created by Jack. As the saying goes, the father is the son. From Jack's father's words and deeds, I could already see something fishy. Not only did he not help his wife with the work, he even nagged her endlessly. Even when he was leaving, he wanted his wife to pour him a cup of tea after she was done. On the other hand, Kyle's immediate supervisor resigned. Ruby, as the newly appointed director of the lawyers, directly reprimanded all the employees present. She even told them to use the new contract in the future. After the meeting, she also called Kyle down afterwards, because Kyle had previously been retaliated against by Lisa and complained. Now, although the investigation into him is over, there are still personal matters that have not been settled. However, Kyle did not give face to Ruby's words and directly rebuffed her. Our time is very precious. My project team and I will also soon conclude the investigation. I still hope that you will not waste time on this matter. Jack, who had just returned home that evening, learned from his father that his wife was in his mother-in-law's room talking ill of him. Hearing this news, Jack's face instantly changed. He walked straight to Lucy's room. At that time, the mother and daughter were happily playing with their child, but they still chose to believe their father. When they noticed him, Jack's face instantly changed. At dinner, when he heard Lucy say that her mother praised Jack, although Jack greeted her with a smile, he began to threaten his mother-in-law when Lucy left. If you want to praise me in the future, you'd better do it in front of me. His mother-in-law heard what her son-in-law said and understood his meaning. Just then, Lucy called back. Jack reverted to his image of a good husband and continued to please his wife. However, that day, when Jack was playing golf with an investor, he met his former lover again. Seeing Lisa in front of him, Jack seemed to have found the feeling he had before. During dinner that night, Lisa, who had just come out of the bathroom, noticed that Jack kept staring at the piano not far away. At this time, she also remembered the scene when the two of them played the piano together, and the images of the two of them dating. But it was all in the past. Everything had become a distant memory. The two of them looked at each other at that moment. In order to prevent the people around them from noticing anything unusual, Lisa quickly pretended to be fine and sat back down in her seat. However, after the reception ended, Jack looked at Lisa as her boyfriend came to pick her up. At that moment, his eyes were so overwhelmed regarding Kyle's bribery reports. After investigation, it was found that he did not violate any regulations, just as Kyle happily thought that he could finally work normally. His boss handed him an order from the Human Resources Department. Kyle was puzzled when he saw Lucy's name on the list of employees to be laid off. He had just been made permanent the day before, so why was he being fired the next day? Ruby told him directly that this was the decision from above and that he should just follow it. He had no choice but to tell Lucy that she was being laid off. When Lucy saw the dismissal letter, she was in a daze. However, when her colleagues heard that she was being laid off, they also sensed that something was wrong. Isn't this just targeting her? It was also because of her colleagues' words that Lucy also thought of something. However, before Lucy could think about it in detail, she received a call from her mother. When she got home, she found her mother helping her mother-in-law deal with her father-in-law. Lucy's mother thought that her father-in-law was domestic violence against his wife. Unexpectedly, her mother was scolded by her father-in-law and fainted directly. After timely treatment, she quickly recovered. Regarding her mother's rude words, Lucy said that no matter what, her father-in-law must apologize to her mother. Luckily, Jack arrived in time. Jack also learned the truth from his father. It turned out to be a misunderstanding. Lucy's mother may have falsely accused her without seeing it. He also did the wrong thing and shouldn't have said such harsh words. However, when it was time to go to bed that night, Jack thought about continuing to please Lucy. He said that he understood the whole story and that he could apologize for his father. But Lucy never expected that she just wanted her father-in-law to apologize himself. Not only did she not get her husband's support, and even heard a sentence that made her scared, Jack said that now that he is making money outside, he has the confidence to speak up. After listening to what her husband said, Lucy thought about what her colleague said today. She still couldn't believe it, so she went to find Kyle again the next day. From Kyle, Lucy also learned that her boss was also being manipulated. Then she went directly to Ruby to make her position clear. Unexpectedly, she still got an unfair attitude, but it also made Lucy see the truth of the matter. On the other side, Mr. who was playing golf, probably saw Jack's relationship with Lisa at the reception, so he asked them to play golf together again. But this time, he didn't show up. However, Jack had to leave to avoid unnecessary trouble. But he hadn't gone far when Lisa called him back again. She told him not to put his relationship with Lisa before his career. Hearing Lisa's words, Jack began to flirt with her recklessly. Lucy went to the nursing home again because of her mother's situation. She wanted to renew her mother's room. What she didn't expect was that her husband had already come in the morning to pay the rent. Hearing this, Lucy was instantly shocked. She suddenly realized how terrible her husband was. The next day, Lucy once again found her best friend and told her that she had been fired from her company. Lucy couldn't believe that the trust she had just built with her husband had collapsed at this moment. However, what Lucy didn't expect was that while she and her best friend were discussing what to do, her husband suddenly came over. Her friend immediately understood that this was not a good situation. Sure enough, as she had expected, Jack showed affection for Lucy in front of her. At first, he said some inoffensive things with a smile. But then after a few sentences, he began his mental attack. He even threatened Lucy's friend. "You are a divorce lawyer. How many families do you break up every year? You are always away from home, so you have to be careful." Lucy couldn't stand listening anymore, so she got up and was about to leave. Unexpectedly, she was directly pulled by her husband's arm. Seeing this, Lucy impatiently asked him what he wanted to do. It's rare to have the opportunity to get together with your best friend and have a good chat. Hearing what Jack said, Lucy could only say that she had come to consult with her best friend about redundancy benefits. However, upon hearing what Lucy said, her husband naturally said, "It's just in time to go home and take care of the children. It's not a bad idea to receive another sum of benefits." In fact, Lucy didn't know that her husband already knew that he had evidence of her infidelity. When Jack got home, he was still not convinced. He kept asking Lucy how long she had been in contact with her best friend. When he saw Lucy, he still refused to believe her. At this time, his heart was full of hatred, but he could only pretend to be fine. Time quickly came to the next day. Ruby met Lucy at the elevator. She suddenly remembered what Lucy had said to her yesterday and realized that something was wrong. Then she went directly to find her supervisor. Seeing the way her boss was looking at her, Ruby guessed that she had probably been used. However, what Lucy never expected was that the person who made her quit was not only pushed by her husband behind her back, but also Lisa was taking revenge on her. It was because Lucy reported her affair that she was forced to resign. Jack wanted to clear his name, and even invited Mr. Chen from his company to testify for him. Watching her husband's every move, Lucy gradually grew to hate him. In order not to quit, she came up with an outsourcing contract, but she started to specifically declare in the outsourcing contract that she could not resign on her own initiative. If there is a breach of contract, the house will be used as collateral. Kyle was shocked when he saw this clause. He also guessed Lucy's next risky move. The next day, Jack saw his old lover flirting with another man. At this moment, his eyes were full of anger. So while Lisa was in the bathroom, Jack found her again. Jack immediately said, "Does that man know that you used to be someone else's lover?" Hearing this, Lisa wanted to slap Jack. Not long ago, Lucy made an unexpected discovery while investigating Jack's transfer of assets during his marriage. She then found her best friend. It showed that Jack's company procurement manager, Mr. Chun, was also involved. What was even more strange was that the company had been deregistered just after the money was transferred. She suspected that there was a big problem. However, what Lucy never expected was that Jack had someone following her every day. At dinner that night, Jack looked at Lucy in front of him but said nothing. After dinner, "Pack a few of my clothes. I'm going on a business trip." When Lucy asked him where he was going, Jack asked if he had to check into the hotel where she was staying. Hearing this, Lucy looked at her husband with a strange look, as if she had sensed something was wrong, so she was about to get up and leave. But she was stopped by her husband the next second. Facing such pressure, and seeing her son beside her, Lucy could only once again submit and sit down at the table. However, what was even more outrageous was that while Lucy was helping him pack for his business trip, Jack told her to quit her job within a week, and even told her not to see the divorce lawyer anymore. Lucy said that not only could infidelity hurt you, but losing your job could too. Jack said that they could start over and rebuild trust. Lucy said that their relationship had long since been damaged. No matter how they fixed it, they could never be as good as they once were. Facing what Lucy had said, Jack still said without regard that he happened to be on a business trip for a week, and she had to quit her job before he returned. But by now, Lucy was no longer the woman who had previously let him do whatever he wanted. She wanted an equal dialogue as a couple, instead of the commanding tone of voice she was currently using. Jack had thought that he was just going on a simple business trip, but what he never expected was that when he got into the car, he saw his old lover Lisa again, and this momentarily left him stunned. During their chat, he learned that Lisa had been arranged by Mr. Mo to work with him. When Lisa handed Jack the room card key, Jack still unconsciously touched Lisa. The two seemed to want to take things further at this moment but were also a little scared. Both sides were restraining each other. On the other side, Ruby was climbing a mountain with Mr. Mo. When he saw that Ruby still liked to drink ice water so much, Mr. Mo casually teased her. Unexpectedly, it was precisely his careless teasing that made Ruby fall into his sad and romantic memories of his marriage. It turned out that Ruby was Jack's ex-wife. In order to become someone, he did everything he could to ingratiate himself. He even carried the refrigerator to the mountains after hearing that she liked iced watermelon. Ruby knew what his purpose was, but was ultimately moved by Jack's actions. However, for the strong-willed Ruby, Jack had always been seen by his colleagues as a man who relied on women. After seeing the weak Jack, Ruby lost face in front of her friends. She ignored Jack's persuasion and kept drinking glass after glass. Lucy, on the other hand, was driving to meet her best friend. On the way, she suddenly noticed someone following her in the rearview mirror. She instantly realized that this person must have been arranged by her husband. So Lucy sped up and found an arcade. Then she went all the way to a women's clothing store and picked out a random dress. Just as the man was about to report, Lucy suddenly appeared. He saw that the man in front of him was the assistant at his husband's company. In order not to affect her meeting with her best friend, Lucy found an excuse to let the assistant go and pick up her child. Then she found her best friend alone. She found out the key thing, that Mr. Chen is likely to cooperate with Jack in the company. She suspects that Mr. Chen has a big problem. Her best friend was a little incredulous when she heard what she said. She asked Lucy if she continued to investigate like this, it was likely to implicate her and her child. Her best friend asked her if she wanted to continue investigating. Lucy hesitated a little when she heard this. She didn't know what to do. She just wanted to find out where Jack had transferred the money. At this time, Jack, who was on a business trip, was drinking with his friends. Just as he looked up, he saw Lisa making out with her boyfriend. At this time, Jack's eyes were already full of hatred. Later, he found Lisa in the bathroom. Jack asked her if her boyfriend knew that she had been someone else's lover. Upon hearing this, Lisa angrily asked if he was jealous. Upon hearing Lisa talk about his wife, Jack could no longer control himself at this moment. He directly pushed Lisa against the wall. Then he was about to passionately kiss her with alcohol. Their behavior in the bathroom was secretly filmed. Just as Jack was about to kiss Lisa, his phone rang. It turned out to be his son calling. This stopped Jack from continuing his impulsive behavior. However, regarding Jack's actions just now, and hearing Jack say that he loved his son, Lisa also understood that she was ultimately just a substitute for him. After returning to the hotel, Jack kept drinking to numb his body. Then he picked up his phone and called his senior brother. He told his senior brother that today he almost made a mistake, and fortunately his son's phone call saved him. When he got home that night, Lucy saw her mother-in-law serving her father-in-law. Her father-in-law started complaining to her mother-in-law again. Then he thought nothing of it and told Lucy to quit her job and go home. Hearing her father-in-law's words, Lucy didn't give him a good face and turned directly back to her room. Just as Lucy was calling her best friend, her father-in-law was like a thief. preparing to eavesdrop on her phone call. But the next second, Lucy opened the door directly, and her father-in-law immediately fell to the ground. Her mother-in-law then quickly and awkwardly closed the door. Time quickly came to the next day. Her father-in-law woke up suddenly and found a strange woman in the kitchen. He curiously went up to check. Both of them were startled by this. It turned out that Lucy was the new nanny. At that time, Lucy was taking her mother-in-law to the elderly activity center to learn how to paint. The new nanny had no idea what was going on when she saw her father-in-law sitting on the sofa the whole time. She said while doing her work that he shouldn't sit on the sofa for a long time, as it was bad for his health. She even criticized her father-in-law's age when she heard the nanny say that he looked like he was in his 70s or 80s. Her father-in-law was so angry that he almost jumped up. "Since you are the nanny, then get me a glass of water." Unexpectedly, the nanny said directly that it was not written in the contract that she had to pour tea. Hearing this, the father-in-law once again set up his set of male chauvinist theories. According to the past, you are a servant and you should pour tea. Hearing this, the nanny also laughed. She had her own contract and the two parties were equal. In the evening, when Lucy and her mother-in-law had just returned home, the father-in-law wanted to prepare to hold a family meeting. When he heard that the nanny was going to be fired, Lucy did not give him the opportunity to refute. She told her father-in-law that the nanny was hired by Jack, and if he wanted to fire her, he should call Jack himself and talk to him. This shut her father-in-law up again. He really had no way to say anything. Time quickly passed to the next day. Her mother-in-law was also getting ready to go out to take painting lessons as usual. The nanny also came over at this time. Unexpectedly, when she saw the nanny, her father-in-law's face instantly changed. On the other side, Jack was in the middle of a meeting. At this time, a video suddenly came through on his phone, and it was a video of him making out with Lisa the day before. Lucy also saw the video at this time. She couldn't understand how her husband could be so bold. At that moment, Lucy no longer expected her husband to change. Jack immediately explained that he was deliberately framed by someone else. When Lucy didn't believe his explanation, Jack showed no remorse. He even asked Lucy what she wanted. Facing her husband's questioning, Lucy's heart had already broken at that moment. She wanted to start over with her husband. She wanted to forgive the past and let go of the past and start over with him. But Lucy tried and did her best. But in the end she still couldn't do everything. And seeing her husband cheat on her again, she was completely disillusioned with the marriage. Jack once again emphasized that the video was fake. Lucy said she didn't care if the video was real or not. What she cared about was days like this that were so torturous. She couldn't go on. Thankfully at this time, their son's cries stopped them in time. The next day, Jack returned to the office and learned from his assistant that Lucy had discovered his stalking. So after careful consideration, he asked someone else to follow his wife. On the other side, Lucy was out with Kyle and the children. What Lucy didn't expect was that a man was reporting her movements to Jack. When Jack returned home in the evening, he saw Lucy on the sofa telling a story to his son. At this moment, he was a little dazed. It seemed like he had returned to the time when they were a happy family. Lucy was also a little dazed at this moment, and looked at Jack hugging the baby and spinning around, a little at a loss for what to do. Was this still the same warm home as before? Time quickly came to the next day. Since Grandma went out every day to learn to paint, no one cooked for Grandpa. With no choice, Grandpa had to learn to cook on his own. But he couldn't cook and almost burned the house down. Fortunately, the nanny returned and this prevented a tragedy. Seeing that Grandpa was still constantly complaining about his wife, the nanny directly scolded him. "You old man, you can't do anything right and you're always complaining. Your wife has taught you all these bad habits." When he heard his father-in-law say that it was his wife who should do it, the nanny told him two examples. The first was an old man similar to him, who always complained about his wife every day. In the end, his wife was so angry that she ran away. One day, he had a heart attack and was lying at home alone with no one to save him. Hearing this, his father-in-law instantly lost his temper. Then the nanny continued to tell him the second example, which she had read about on the internet the other day. The old lady couldn't stand her husband's control, so she drove her car and hasn't been home for 2 or 3 years, leaving the old man alone at home. What a miserable life. At this moment, the father-in-law was also thinking thoughtfully, so he took advantage of the fact that the nanny was not at home and called his wife. At first, the father-in-law was quite strong and asked her when she would be back. But the next second, the father-in-law's tone became gentle. Jack wanted to control Lucy again, so he brought her to a parent-child game organized by the kindergarten. Lucy froze when she saw the game. She remembered the previous scene of Jack controlling her. At that moment, Lucy also understood her husband's meaning, but now she is no longer the person who used to let others control her. Lucy wanted her husband Jack to experience the feeling of being controlled, so she proposed to the head of the kindergarten that this time, the man be blindfolded and the woman give the commands. Jack could also see that Lucy was deliberately targeting him, but with the children there, he could only let Lucy blindfold him. After Lucy's reminder, he was still at a loss as to what to do. Watching her husband leave angrily, Lucy felt so good at that moment. This was the first battle in which she began to fight back. When Jack returned home that night, he saw that his father had personally prepared a table of dishes. This truly shocked him. He could never believe that his father would cook for himself. Seeing Lucy and the others happy, Jack was still a little confused. That night, Jack warned his wife not to go against him. In this family, only he had the final say. That day, Jack learned from a colleague that his wife was investigating him. She even found out about the company he used to transfer his assets. In order to regain control of Lucy, Jack directly picked up his mother-in-law from the nursing home. Lucy also became afraid the moment she saw her mother. Jack even threatened to take the child. For Jack, he still did not want a divorce. He also did not want Lucy to leave him, so Jack decided to send his parents away. He also fired the nanny. He still wanted to return to the happy life of the previous three-member family. At this time, Lucy didn't say anything, but her eyes made her husband feel the fear of being dominated. The next day, Ruby found Jack's partner. Mr. Chen thought someone had written an anonymous letter to report him, and he even suspected that Kyle was deliberately targeting him. But he didn't know that the one who really wanted to investigate him was Ruby, because Ruby remembered what Lucy had said before. She suspected that Mr. Chen was colluding with outsiders to make false accounts. On the other side, Lucy was also investigating Mr. Chen's affairs, and learned something from her best friend. The company that they investigated had no problems, but the suspicious thing was that the place of birth of the legal representative was the same as Jack's. Lucy saw that the other person, Jack, was from the same hometown. At this moment, she dared not believe it. She also understood that there must be something fishy. Time quickly came to night. Jack Sr. and his wife came to their home as guests. While they were chatting, the senior praised Jack for being a popular figure in school. Lucy immediately asked Jack if he had a girlfriend in college. Hearing this question, Jack was stunned. Lucy said that her husband had always kept this topic a mystery and never talked about it himself. Jack immediately said, "You were my first love." Lucy immediately said, "Didn't you get married once?" Her words directly shocked the two people across from her. Jack also seemed at a loss for words. Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, Lucy quickly smiled and said that she was just asking. The brother and sister-in-law also understood that there was a hidden meaning in her words and did not dare to respond. He said that those things were in the past. The most important thing now is that you can make a good home together. Lucy said that she was just simply curious. How could anyone let go of a man as good as my husband, who is successful in his career and treats people well? This remark once again left her husband and his wife at a loss for words. Jack, who was standing nearby, also saw the gradually awkward atmosphere and immediately expressed his loyalty. He pretended to say that he had known Lucy for too long. Lucy didn't intend to continue asking after hearing this. In fact, she knew that her husband was not afraid of losing himself, but losing this marriage. This also made Jack very angry. After returning to her room, Lucy sent a text message to her best friend, asking her to find out who her husband's ex-wife was. It was at this moment that Lucy finally realized that Jack's ex-wife was none other than her boss Ruby, and she also learned from Kyle that Ruby was also investigating Mr. Chen. If Jack really had anything to do with Mr. Chen, it would soon be discovered. Facing Kyle's request for help, Lucy ultimately chose to face it on her own. On the other side, Jack had been causing trouble for Lucy for some time. He had arranged to have a drink with his senior colleague. Jack told his senior colleague that he wanted to return to the old days with Lucy, and that the video was a mistake. Jack doesn't understand why his wife is acting up. Lucy learns from her best friend that she only needs to prove that Jack is connected to that company. Then it will be confirmed that he has transferred assets. Jack not only finds someone to follow and investigate her best friend after hearing that Lucy is investigating him, but also causes a car accident. Lucy also realizes that this is when Jack starts to do things to her when she hears that her best friend has been hit. However, what she never expected was that when she returned to where her mother lives, she saw that Jack had also found this place. In order not to affect her mother, Lucy had to go back to that nightmare-filled home with Jack again. Jack not only took out a photo of Lucy sitting with Kyle, but even threatened Lucy with the child. He demanded that Lucy greet him with a smile when she returned home. Lucy said, "Just get a dog then." Jack continued to threaten Lucy, saying that she must quit her job the next day. Jack didn't know that it was because of his words that Lucy resigned, and officially fell into the trap designed by Lucy. He thought Lucy had completely given in. The next day, Lucy found Kyle and told him she was quitting. Kyle wanted to stop her, telling her there was a high compensation package. However, Lucy already had a plan. Not only would she resign voluntarily, she would also make sure that Kyle and the company sued her for breach of contract. Later, Lucy found Ruby and revealed her identity. She needed Ruby's help. At this point, Ruby also roughly understood what Lucy meant. When Lucy returned home that night, she casually took out the contract that the company wanted to sue her for. She told Jack about the lawsuit. Jack saw that the contract contained a clause about a house mortgage. He angrily accused Lucy of being a lawyer who knew the contract was unreasonable, and why she had to sign such a compensation clause. Lucy said without emotion that she hadn't worked for many years and had long forgotten all that professional knowledge. At this moment, Jack instantly understood that Lucy had done this on purpose. Lucy told him that there were other solutions. The first is to divorce her and completely sever ties with her. The second is to pay a high compensation. The third is to let her continue working. But for Jack, none of these three options were possible, so he decided to meet with Lucy's company's legal department tomorrow. Time quickly came to the next day. Jack and Lucy arrived at the company where she worked. However, what Jack never expected was that he met his ex-wife here. At this moment, he was instantly at a loss, and all of this was within Lucy's calculations. She wanted to use Ruby to pressure her husband. Obviously, Ruby dominated the conversation. Jack didn't want to see the person who once controlled him, so he quickly pulled Lucy away. But just as he did, Ruby, who was sitting across from them, stood up. She threatened Jack, saying that if he left now, he would hear from the court tomorrow. Faced with Ruby's accusations, Jack was so overwhelmed that he couldn't even look up. But after a while, Jack laughed and said, "This is obviously a personal vendetta." He accused Ruby of having poor character and not understanding the most basic principles. Jack told Kyle that Lucy was not the owner of the house, so her mortgage was invalid, and this was also a tyrannical clause. Seeing that the atmosphere had reached this point, Lucy smiled, but this was also seen by Jack. Seeing Jack's angry face, Lucy continued to provoke his inner pain at this moment. And at this moment, Jack also understood that this was a trap they had set for themselves. Immediately, in the tug-of-war between the two, he directly pushed Lucy out of the way. Soon Jack was detained for 7 days for domestic violence. Kyle overheard Lucy ordering the room while his colleague was replacing the glass. He had also told him before that the glass was broken. At this moment, Kyle also understood Lucy's intentions. The next day, Jack took the initiative to apologize to his wife. However, what's the use of a belated apology? Looking at her husband in front of her, Lucy still couldn't forgive him for his previous mistakes. However, what Jack didn't expect still happened. Learning that the money in his account had been transferred by Lucy, Jack did not hesitate to take their son away from Lucy. At this moment, Lucy panicked. Just 2 days ago, Lucy's investigation into Jack's assets was discovered. An angry Jack accused Lucy of this being the result of his hard work over the past 10 years. Lucy also broke down when she heard this. "Is it because of this that I have to compromise and forgive your betrayal again and again?" Then Lucy angrily took out the divorce agreement that she had prepared. Jack was furious when he saw the divorce papers handed to him. He tore up the divorce papers and slammed them on Lucy. Then he said, with a dangerous tone in his voice, "I hate it when people betray me, especially the person in my bed." Jack once again told Lucy to resign from her job. Then he drove away from home. In the car, he thought about what Lucy had told him before, and what Mr. Chen had told her. All these scenes flashed through her mind. Jack at this moment felt that everyone had turned their backs on him. He never expected that his wife would want a divorce. Meanwhile, at home, Lucy began packing her things and preparing to leave. At this moment, she had also made up her mind. She would no longer be as weak as she had been in the past. After packing her things, Lucy took her son and went to the residence that had been prepared for her mother. Then she called her best friend. Now that all her things were ready, she was just waiting for her best friend to return so that they could officially start the divorce process with Jack. However, on the way back, her friend was tailed by someone. If nothing unexpected happened, a car accident was inevitable. Not long ago, Lucy learned from her friend that, although Jack had used his own money to cover the company's losses, now that the crisis had been resolved, that money had still not been recovered. Instead, it had been transferred to the name of a club. At this time, Lucy also understood that her current husband was going to make a mistake. After all is said and done, once the trust between the two breaks down, they will drift further and further apart. She then told her best friend that she was also preparing to formally file for divorce with Jack. On the other hand, Jack, in order to celebrate his senior's housewarming, even sent them a lot of furniture, just as he happily thought that he was waiting for his senior to get the house ready, and then come over with Lucy to eat dinner. What he never expected was that he received the news that his senior had resigned the next day. Upon seeing his senior's resignation letter, Jack instantly felt dumbfounded. Yesterday, he was fine, but why did he resign without saying goodbye? Subsequently, he went to his senior's new home, but no matter how hard he knocked on the door, no one answered. At this time, he learned from the neighbors that no one had been at home for the past 2 days, and that the renovation team had already left. Hearing this news, Jack panicked completely. Then he hurried back to the company. He told the employees to do everything they could to find out which company had poached. Jack even told his subordinates to go to his former colleague's new home and stake it out. At this time, Mr. Chen also discovered at the company that Lucy had returned to work. At this moment, he also realized that something was wrong, because recently he was investigated by the company and thought it was Lucy who reported him behind his back. He then called Jack to tell him what he had found out. Not only did he say that his wife Lucy was investigating him, he even told Jack that they had found out about a certain company. When he heard the name of the company, Jack panicked instantly, so he ignored everything and came to Lucy's company. In full view of everyone, Jack dragged Lucy straight back to his home. When he heard his senior say that he was afraid of him, Jack was completely confused. He told Jack that everything he had now was because of him. His senior also worried that if something happened one day, he would definitely be the one to take the blame. He knew exactly how vicious Jack was. Jack couldn't believe that his senior had now become like this, recalling the things they had said while drinking and chatting before, and the scene of him furiously sending him those vicious words in a message, thinking about the image of him once making his senior drink. At this moment, he completely broke down. There was no longer the arrogant and haughty expression of the past. His senior said those vicious things for his own good. He used to be arrogant and headstrong. He even forced Lucy to divorce him. This was to make him think about what he had done. Then Jack found Lucy and hoped to beg her forgiveness, but it was too late. Lucy still produced the divorce agreement. Despite Jack's desperate pleas, Lucy still refused him. Once a person's heart has been broken, no amount of mending can return it to the way it was. On the other side, Mr. Chen was also found to have a problem by Ruby and a few others. At first, he refused to admit it. Under the constant pressure of Lucy and the others, Mr. Chen finally admitted to embezzling funds with Jack, one problem after another. As Mr. Chen was being investigated, Lisa's leader found Jack. Although Jack and Mr. Chen had no contract and had repaid the money he embezzled, Jack was eventually detained for domestic violence and bullying. He had to make the decision to divest from his company. At this time, Jack also understood the other party's meaning. However, he was never willing to give up. Lisa persuaded him that this path would not work and that he should think of another way. On the other side, Lucy also investigated the legal person behind the company to which her husband had transferred money. This person was the woman who had asked him for help. It turned out that the woman and Jack had known each other since high school. Neither of their families were well off. Later, Jack was admitted to university. She worked part-time while sending money to Jack to complete his studies, because Jack promised her that he would marry her after graduation. The two lost contact after Jack graduated. It was 3 years ago when she saw Jack by chance, and the two reconnected. Jack saved some money with her to make up for what he owed her, which is why Jack's account is empty. However, the woman approached Lucy to get back at Jack and let him experience what it's like to lose a child. But at the last minute, the woman finally didn't go through with it, because the time she spent with Lucy made her feel pity for Lucy. The woman also understood that Lucy and Jack are different people. On the other side, a subordinate of the company secretly signed a contract with someone else. Jack immediately felt bad when he saw the contract, because he knew that person's hands were not clean. Even the subordinate hid from Jack that Lucy's best friend was involved in a car accident. Hearing this news instantly made Jack collapse. Jack, in order to express his indebtedness to Lucy, directly transferred all the shares he had to Lucy. However, it was precisely his actions that directly shocked Lucy. Even Lisa, who wanted to help him take back the company, couldn't believe it, that all her hard work had come to nothing. She couldn't believe that she had become the laughingstock. Lisa questioned whether Jack really had to do this. Jack just kept saying sorry. Facing Jack's constant apologies, Lisa asked if he still had feelings for Lucy. She told Hu Cheng not to worry, that she would find a way to help him take the company back. Jack said that they should never have gotten together in the first place. "You're still young. You can start again." Looking at Jack, who had given up on himself, Lisa hugged him and comforted him. "Don't lose heart. You will win." Jack said that by doing so, we lose our integrity and dignity, and perhaps our freedom. One day, you will feel that everything is not worth it. Facing the bank card Jack took out, Lisa angrily threw it on the ground. At this time, Jack no longer had the fighting spirit he once had. Then he took the card and handed it to Lisa again. Perhaps he thought this was the only way to make up for what he owed Lisa. After Jack finished speaking, he turned around and drove away, leaving a sad Lisa. At this moment, she was also completely disillusioned with Jack. Not long ago, Lucy took over Jack's company, which was heavily in debt. She was desperately trying to get on the right side of the table every day, and none of this was what Lucy had wanted for herself. She took over the company to help Jack pay off all his debts, and then return the company to him once it was back on track. She also understood that she wasn't good at this, but Lucy also knew that Lisa was constantly trying to trip her up. On the other hand, Lisa was being ostracized by the company leaders because of Jack's unsavory connections. The leaders not only didn't assign her work, they even told the employees to lie and say she was on a business trip. But she never thought that when she turned around, she saw the case she used to be in charge of. Lisa learned that the leader had not gone on a business trip but was upstairs in his office. At this moment, she also understood her situation, so she became even more desperate to help Jack take back his old company. Every day, Lisa roamed the various drinking parties to win over some investors and Lucy's company shareholders to use for her own purposes. This day, Jack was finally released from prison early because of his good behavior, and just as he was about to leave the prison gate, he saw Lucy and her son come to pick him up. At this moment, he was full of happiness. However, while waiting for his son to run past him, Jack realized that everything was just a fantasy. Then he went downstairs to the building where his old company was located. Jack wanted to see if the place where he used to work was still there. Lucy, who was about to go out, also saw Jack standing not far away at this time. The moment the two met, they no longer had the arrogance they had before. Hearing Jack thanking her for not bringing her child to see him, at this time, Lucy also understood what he meant. He didn't want his child to remember his father as a prisoner. Seeing Jack as usual, Lucy laughed angrily, as Jack had just moved out. His house was also seized and he had nowhere to go. He could only turn to Lisa again. Seeing Lisa busy herself for him, Jack felt bad. He knew he shouldn't be a burden to Lisa. So when he saw Lisa forcing Lucy to give up her position at the shareholders' meeting the next day, Jack also made his own decision. He gave up all his shares and gave everything to Lucy. This was perhaps the last thing he could do for Lucy. Time passed quickly and the company soon got back on track. Lucy also gave up on continuing to run the company. All she could do was return the company to Jack. She and Kyle now worked together on legal charity work. Lisa also stopped working so hard and returned to her grandmother's side. It seemed like they had returned to the way things were. Everyone was doing the things they were happy to do. But this broken family could never go back to being whole.